Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our training sessions. This is session 2 of our AI training series. In our previous session, we looked at how AI can help us improve productivity and the quality of the work we do. But like any technology, AI has two sides to it. So these same tools can also help us, as well as helping us save time with our work and efficiency, they can also be used by cyber criminals to create attacks that are much more convincing and more targeted and harder to spot. Many of the traditional warning signs that we used to look out for, like really bad spelling, poor grammar, poor graphics, strange wording, and all those obvious things are increasingly being replaced by really highly polished emails, realistic voices, and convincing video impersonations even. So that's why understanding how AI is changing this threat landscape has become just as important as how we should be using it for productivity. So that's a really interesting topic. And today's session is designed to help you recognize these new risks, understand how attackers are exploiting AI, and more importantly, learn some practical steps to help us safely and confidently see if something is fake. So during this session, we're going to be covering AI-generated phishing attacks and why they've become so convincing, deep face, voice, and video scams, how AI is enhancing social engineering attacks, how attackers are using AI, and how we can defend ourselves against these attacks. And then we're going to also talk about shadow AI, GDPR. I know that was a big question. If you came to our first session last month, there was lots of questions about the rules of GDPR. So we've got a specialist coming in today to talk to us about that as well. And then some practical advice on managing AI safely within our organizations. So this is a live training session again. Please feel free to type in any questions in the chat. As our trainers are speaking, I'll try and keep an eye on the chat and pick out questions. And at the end of each speaker, I'll read out those questions and hopefully we can get as many of those answered as possible. So we are joined again today by our fantastic trainer, Jonathan Pollinger. As we know, he's trained thousands of professionals over hundreds of workshops in AI. He's accredited with BCS, CompTIA, and is a regular AI commentator on BBC Local Radio. And today we're also joined by a cyber and AI consultant, Pal Shemi, and he'll be sharing practical guidance on shadow AI, GDPR, and evolving regulatory landscape. So if you've got any questions for Pal, he might not be able to stay till the very end. So if you could put your questions in early, I'll ask him those questions straight after his session and before we move on to Jonathan. So he's going to talk to us about that, and then we'll follow on with Jonathan's training. So what I'll do is I'll hand straight over to Pal. Pal, welcome.
Welcome. Hello. Hi,
I'll
everyone.
just kick off, Cassandra, if
Oh,
that's all right.
sorry.
Just to
Yeah,
Apologies.
that's fine. Yeah, set the
No,
scene, Jonathan.
no worries. Thank you very much for that excellent, comprehensive introduction, Cassandra. So, just a few housekeeping bits and pieces. So, we're scheduled to be here for an hour today. So, we'll be finishing at 1. Just to re-emphasize the point on questions, as Cassandra mentioned, do feel free to drop those into the chat. And then Pal is going to kick off very shortly, and he will take those questions after his session. And then I'll take the remaining questions at the end. And for a bit of fun and practical experience and to improve your learning experience, we've got a quiz included today for you based on the contents of today. So I'm just going to set the scene before passing over to Pal. Pal is going to basically tell us all about AI regulation so that you're really setting the scene for us so that you understand all the rules and the regulations, everything from the EU AI Act, which you might have heard of, through to GDPR. Then it's going to pass back to me. We're going to look at the tactics that these bad actors use, like phishing and video and voice scams. How you can tell these now? This is becoming increasingly difficult, as Cassandra mentioned. So we're going to look at that, but it's not all bad news, because there are some things that you can do, and we're going to share with you practical steps on how you can deal with these new threats, and indeed you can use AI in your defense as well. So that includes, you should therefore by the end be able to act with confidence in the face of these threats. We're going to stress the importance of reporting any issues quickly. And even, I would say, even within the last 6 months, there has been a big shift because of AI. So the risk is far greater now. And actually, this timing of this webinar is exceedingly good, because the National Cyber NCSC, I always get the letters mixed up, National Cyber Security Centre literally issued an alert on Monday. So more of that in due course. So I'm just going to pass over to Pal now, who's going to tell us all about the regulatory perspective on AI technologies. Welcome to the session, Pal.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks, Cassandra, as well. So, hi, everyone. Very happy to meet you all. So this is something I think that it's quite useful for us to set the context around where AI is. Everyone's obviously very excited about what AI can do. Some people are terrified about what AI can do. And there's all kinds of, every emotion on the spectrum around AI in general. So my short addition to this series of seminars is really just to discuss where we're sitting in terms of regulations and how things are evolving and why. So the UK itself is more focused on innovation and much more of a sector-based approach to AI and AI regulation. But the EU has got quite a different approach. The EU it's got a single act. It's overarching. It's very much like GDPR again, right? And we all remember how much we enjoyed the joy of GDPR, I think it was, a few years ago. So in the UK, we've got things like the AI Opportunities Plan, which it started in early 2025. There's the existing regulators that we know and love, like the ICO, the FCA, Ofcom, and others who are very much involved. So there's no dedicated AI regulator, but there are things like the AI Safety Institute. They offer something like that. So it's not that the UK hasn't been doing anything. It's just that what the EU's done is really kind of set a landmark. In recent days, weeks, it's attracted a bit of criticism from across the pond as well. We're saying that, hey, Europe has basically regulated its way out of innovation, and that's not quite true. So let me share my slides, and we'll go through a few concepts. Not particularly, it's nothing too detailed. So don't worry, I'm not going to bombard you with lots of regulations. All right, so let's go. Someone can just give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Right, thanks, Cassandra. Thank you. All right, let's drag this over here and drag that up there. Marvelous technology. Right, so first things first. So the EU AI Act isn't regulating an individual technology. It's all around risk. It's almost like the EU learned from the execution of GDPR, but actually we need to be a bit clearer. The GDPR, with all of the recitals, always makes me laugh when they talk about GDPR recitals. Something that's not exactly the sort of thing you would sing, but they're called recitals, and they explain each of the GDPR articles. For this, they've adopted quite a different approach. It's based entirely around risk potential and the context of how you're using your AI. So there are essentially there's four main classifications, four main groups of AI, and some of these have been around for a very long time indeed. I'm talking 1980s. Right? So it's not as if these are new inventions, perhaps with the advent of modern computing and all that advanced cooling and speed and everything, we've been able to accelerate this tremendously. So things are happening faster now than ever before. But even back then, I remember my final year project was an AI project in the 80s, and that was quite different. It was just a simple rule-based system. So rule-based systems, if this, then that, those types of things are one component. I'm not going to go into the in-depth of these different types of AI systems, but just to call them out for what they are. So the first is rule-based. Second is machine learning. And as the name suggests, this is where a system, a computing system, an AI system can learn from its environment, from its inputs, and then make seeming decisions off the back of that, making use of AI to reach those decisions. Then there's deep learning and neural networks. And as the name suggests, you're sort of thinking neural networks, you're probably thinking of a brain, some kind of a deep connection there. And that's, you're absolutely right. So the idea here is to have multiple layered learning that's going on and a very well interconnected set of systems and AI. Then, of course, the one that we're probably quite familiar with is natural language processing and also computer vision, which is an interesting area of development. So NLP is commonly what we use, but I'm not going to go into those. That's probably more part of what Jonathan is going to cover. So I shan't be going into that. So let's talk about some of these, just a little bit more detail, not too much, not too many slides. So if then is easy. So if this, then that. That's quite straightforward. We kind of understand that. We're not too concerned about that. Machine learning is going to learn from large amounts of data. Now, from a regulatory perspective, this is really important because if you've got a machine learning system and it bases a decision on that large amount of data and there's bias in the data, we've got a problem. Yeah. So we need to ensure that as much as possible, we've cleaned that data so it's not biased, it's not propagating bias, and also that we've got an ability to explain. So to be able to say, well, this is the decision that the AI came to, and this is how it came to that decision. So that explainability is also very important. Deep learning is, again, as the name suggests, it's deep. It's harder for us to have that same level of transparency. It's harder for us to have the explainability. And often these are high risk or safety critical or human rights sensitive contexts. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And then NLP, basic computer vision, these are, you have all the standard obligations such as you need good data quality, you need to be able to explain what you're doing. There should be a human in the loop. So we're not completely going to get cut out the loop. There will still be a need to have somebody overviewing everything that's going on. This is particularly relevant when it's safety or personal data. So what about the overall context here? So AI is not a technical topic just on its own. You could just look at the inner technology, but that's not the whole picture. AI is going to hugely impact value creation and risk exposure of organizations as well, in terms of what's being, what the organization is at risk of. And there are also a number of compliance related obligations that organizations will have to meet. Now, it isn't just, as I mentioned, it isn't just AI. There's also multiple things we've got to consider here. There's GDPR that's been around. So the individual, the data subject, and their rights, how are they going to be impacted? How are those going to interface with the use of AI? So with GDPR, it's very clear. We need to declare processing. We need to tell people what we're doing. It's very clearly defined. That starts to get a little bit more challenging when you bring in these amazing AI tools because they blur those lines. And other areas around sectors and product safety are also worthy of consideration. So any organization using AI today, this is something that you should be doing. You should be able to identify and manage your risks. So you've probably already got a risk register of sorts. You should update that and include AI-related risks. You should ensure that there's good data quality and your data isn't biased. And you should also have humans in the loop. So don't just let the AI do its thing. And there has to be a consideration of quality and good management that's in place. So the general timeline is October this year. We're looking for this to land, but the timelines, there may be some changes to this. I think this may slightly be updated, but this October, we're looking for it to come into force, along with all the good fines and things if you don't meet your obligations. Now, as I mentioned, there's 4 risk levels. I won't dwell on them too long because we've got limited time. The first one is unacceptable, absolutely prohibited. You cannot use, maintain, run any of these systems that are unacceptable because they violate human dignity, fundamental rights. There's also minimal risk systems. There's no real relevance. They don't really affect the rights of the individual. And then there's limited risk, which is interaction, but they're the basic sorts of things, but we need to ensure that there's no deception. The biggest area that's going to affect us is high risk. This is the area where the most work will be done. So as I mentioned, unacceptable risk is manipulation, subliminal advertising, hidden cues, right? The big difference between manipulation and persuasion, right? Manipulation, think Breaking Bad. Yeah, that's manipulation. But general advertising is fine. Social scoring as well, and real-time biometric identification. And someone's going to say to me, hey, Pal, wasn't there a recent announcement in the news yesterday or today to have a public biometric identification? It's probably got some AI element in there. Yes, you're allowed to do it. There are scenarios where you can. It's a very narrow case. So let's talk about the main bulk of where it's going to affect us. Is anywhere where I'll just go straight to. So if you've got HR, or if you're running any kind of finance, if you've got any educational training, or if you're in the healthcare industry or security justice industries, this is really going to have a significant impact on how you operate. And this is where you need to ensure that you've fulfilled the obligations that are needed. Limited risk is these sorts of systems are not too worried. We're familiar with chatbots, Gen AI, deepfakes as well. Now, with just a note on deepfakes, Cassandra mentioned these as well, is it has to be disclosed. It has to be very clear. It needs to say, hey, this is generated using AI. So a lot of the requirements can be met just by disclosure. Minimal risk systems are things that usually happen in the background. This is, again, use of AI. AI is used for spam filtering, used for user interfaces as well, or recommendations of products. We don't think twice about it, and that's okay. Where it starts to get difficult is when you're using AI in these high-risk areas. So I would urge this group and everybody to consider all of these areas and think about your organization and where your high-risk areas are. There's something called Annex 3 in the EU AI Act. And I'm going on about the EU AI. We're not in the EU, but it's interesting. We're probably going to adopt a lot of the similar principles. A lot of the world already is. It's because the EU's really set the benchmark high. So think about these different areas and how you're using AI and whether you're fulfilling the obligations that are there. So high risk, you need to make sure that you have formal risk management processes, that you have documentation that allows you to be audited if a regulator comes to you. And if there's any assurance that's required, any labeling or transparency, or any data processing agreements that have got to be updated. As I said, the EU is very much focused on that binding law, and the UK's got much more sector specific. Now, if you don't comply, if you don't meet the obligations, the challenges are you could face a fine. And remember, just like GDPR, it's not just restricted to Europe. If we're working with an EU organisation, this will affect us. Or if we've got EU operations, this will affect us. And these are quite significant sanctions. We're talking 35 million euros or 7%, whichever's the higher number, which could be crippling for many organisations. Now, how do you meet a regulation? You work to a standard. So you're compliant against a standard. And the standard, there's an AI management system, ISO 42001, and also 23894. These give you practical advice, practical guidance on how to be compliant to land on the right side of the regulation. How am I doing for time, Cassandra? Am I okay? You're on mute.
I was just going to ask Jonathan what time is handover.
Yeah, probably hand over pretty quick if that's okay,
Yeah.
pal. Looks like you're coming to the end of the slides anyway. So
Yeah.
I kind of am. Thank you. Thanks both. All right, just checking this. So ensure that if you do these things, these 4 things on the slide there, you're probably a long way ahead of most organizations. Fundamentally, as long as you're not doing something that's a prohibited practice and you have good traceability, so you can explain things, you can protect fundamental rights, You've got very clear roles. You'll see the emergence of chief AI officers. And technically, it's safe, and it's safe for the individual. You're a long way along the path. You need to be able to demonstrate that you've done as much as you possibly can to manage AI risk, protect the individual, and not using a prohibited practice. So typically, they're looking at human dignity, quality, diversity, transparency, all of these good criteria that most of us hopefully are already doing in our organizations. All right. That's the end of my short presentation. Any questions?
Thanks, pal. Let's have a look if we've got anything. I think somebody knows you saying hello, Steve.
Oh, hello.
But
hello.
Any questions on GDPR or regulation? I can put them forward. If you think of anything after, I'm sure I can forward it on. So there's nothing at the moment. Looks like you must have covered everything that was needed. I'll hand straight over to Jonathan.
Thanks very much, Cassandra. Thanks, Pal, as well. So really interesting and comprehensive summary of the regulatory environment there, which nicely sets the scene for our next section, where we're looking at cyber security and how AI factors into that. So the key message, or one of the key messages today, is that it's not that your staff are becoming, or yourself is becoming more careless and sloppy when it comes to recognizing potential cyber attacks, scams, and frauds. It's just that AI is making it easier and making those potential scams, those emails and other messages, more of the different types of messaging that scammers are now using coming later, but just making them way more convincing than they were previously. So I mentioned the new alert that has just been issued by the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre, part of GCHQ. And afterwards, when you get the slides, you will get a link to that, or you can Google it and find it. So came out on Monday, and really interestingly, we'd as you know, because we'd circulated the agenda before Monday, and pretty much covers the same ground as we're covering today. So very timely and appropriate. And that advice is coming from the top. So I think part of our job today is to really reinforce that advice. So it's it's literally bang on. We could have even given that title to today's webinar: the AI shift in cyber risk, why leaders must act now. So the nature of the threat of these potential cyber attacks and actual cyber attacks and scams has really changed, and I would say this has happened pretty fast. AI is a very, very fast moving field. So the things that have changed are the speed. So just very easy now to create convincing emails, messages, content, deepfakes, which we'll come on to, in much, much less time than before, and also to create large volumes of them. Now, as Cassandra mentioned, there are less obvious tells, like those very obvious about a year ago, spelling mistakes and sort of badly formed sentences and poor grammar, awkward phrasing. So there's less of that now, because in the same way that AI can be used, as we went through the webinar last time, could be used to create some really good quality content. If you've got a bad actor that wants to create a really good scam email, then sadly it has if you know what you're doing, it has the potential to be able to do that as well. But not just text, also voice and video as well. Particularly voice is on the rise. And you just need a few seconds of somebody talking, which is relatively easy to pick up, particularly with all the Teams and Zoom meetings that we're having these days. And that is enough to generate a convincing replica voice of yourself, or perhaps of your CEO asking to transfer some money. So voice cloning definitely on the rise recently, and also a big shift is Email, I would say it's still the dominant channel, but there are more channels being used, and we'll look at these in more detail later. But scam messages now coming in via Teams, WhatsApp, SMS, social media, particularly LinkedIn, but also Instagram as well. It's very easy to send a DM to Instagram. Somebody just on Instagram, somebody just needs to be following you to do that, and phone calls as well. So think we were all a little bit kind of like felt, or perhaps we currently feel, which is the perception I'm trying to change, that we could detect a scam email or a phishing email pretty easily because of the bad grammar and because of the spelling, but that is no longer enough. So the more recent emails and messages that people are receiving now are really, really convincing. So AI can adjust the tone, it can personalize, it can do research, it can do really good formatting. So all things considered, it can be really convincing. So not your staff, but sadly, the tech when it's misused can make people fall for scams and phishing attempts. Particularly concerning is deep fakes, sort of on the voice and video side. And this can be a phone call, it can be an audio message. We're all using audio messages more now, whether that's on WhatsApp or LinkedIn. And these are very, very easy to generate. And whilst they can be convincing because it sounds like your boss or your chief financial officer asking you to do something, that is not enough. So process, will come on to the steps that you can take to mitigate against these new sophisticated techniques. But process is a very key part of that, as indeed Pal was referring to. So you do need these processes in place. So if you have a solid, and worth reviewing anyway, currently, if you have a solid process in place for authorizing bank transfers, let's say, or payments to suppliers and that kind of thing, definitely worthwhile reviewing, but also it still needs to be followed. So if you have somebody on a video speaking to you saying, oh, this is like really urgent and we need to make this transfer to XYZ, don't fall for that. Stick to the process that is in place. So the process will save you. A couple of real world examples out there that you might have heard of, and the first one's actually quite extraordinary, and also interesting that it's about 18 months ago now, but technology has improved again since then. But this is probably the largest fake video kind of like scam, but the significant thing and very concerning thing with the Arup one in Hong Kong, where $20 million was transferred completely out of process, was that it was live. So the scammers actually set up kind of like the board, a fake version of the company's board. So it wasn't just a single person, wasn't just the CFO asking for the transfer, but there were other, to the person, the employee who actually made the transfer, there were other convincing live representations of colleagues of his colleagues and the colleagues at board level. So pretty concerning, that one, that not only can you have a recorded video that is fake, but nowadays the technology is there and available. I did a bit of research on this actually, and it's available on the dark web. You can literally go and buy it. So pretty concerning. So definitely one to watch for, and we will be coming on to mitigation techniques soon. On the recorded video front, a nasty scam, or definitely was scams, because there have been more than one, are scammers and bad actors faking Martin Lewis, the might be aware, the money saving expert guy. So he is often, I would say, go as far as saying that actually, often popping up on social media in particular, encouraging people to invest in a really solid investment scheme to increase their returns, the kind of thing that he would normally do. But sadly, it's completely bogus scheme, and it's a bogus Martin Lewis. He is a deep fake. It is not him, but it's realistic enough for people to fall for that. There was actually one where they even faked the studio. I think it was BBC Studios that he was in. So even the background, as well as Martin Lewis himself, was convincing, and people do fall for these deep fakes. So, some particular warning signs to look out for if people are in a rush. So, if the email that you receive, the LinkedIn message you receive, the phone call, the audio message, if there's a sense of urgency there, like they give a bogus reason why you need to act quick because maybe you're going to lose the supplier or something like that, or it's somebody new that you want to build a relationship with. Ignore all of that and just treat the urgency as a red flag, and don't forget to revert back to process. Another one is secrecy. So what scammers often try and do is isolate you and focus on an individual person to prevent you following process and looking up procedures, and perhaps speaking to a manager or a colleague to check that everything is okay. So there could be some encouragement and reason given to keep it quiet, because it's what perhaps a director has asked the person on the call to do, or maybe the scammer is impersonating the director and he's senior to you and he's telling you to keep something secret. So potentially you could fall for that, but just another warning sign to be aware of. The authority one, so if it is somebody more senior for you, you're following essentially instructions on a regular basis from your manager, from the board, and potentially from the boss at the top. Any of those people can be impersonated. And if it's not the person at the top or the CFO, then reference could be made to them. So a manager, a clone of a manager, could be saying, "Oh, this is really important for the CEO. If you do him a favor, then that's going to stand you in his good books," and so on. So look out for that authority pressure there. People might say, as I said, revert to process is a good mitigation technique, but a scammer might say, "Oh, just on this occasion, we need to bypass this. I'm sure you'll understand," etc., etc. But don't fall for that one. So always follow the process. And for a number of reasons, people might get you to switch the channel. So if you're on an internal channel like Teams, for example, there are certain safeguards and systems in place there that could, from an IT point of view, that could flag up potential issues. If you're on CRM and HR type systems, those platforms will also have built-in safeguards as well. So it's any communication happening there, and particularly if the encouragement is to go to WhatsApp, that is definitely a red flag. WhatsApp, as we know, it's all encrypted. It's generally a one-to-one conversation. So this is back to the sort of like secrecy, the isolation point, that the scammer can have a one-to-one conversation with you. And because that conversation is encrypted, there's no safeguards from the platform itself. There's nobody else monitoring it. There is no extra way to dictate that a potential fraud might be underway there. So do be very wary if the person on the other end of the phone or the video, voice note, message that's come in via email or any other channels suggests that you move to another channel, particularly if that channel is WhatsApp. So looking at the different channels in particular, so it is generally email that scams are taking place on, but all of these others within the last 6 months, last year, have taken a massive increase in fraud and scams. So it's kind of the message here is just to be aware of all of these channels and not just email. So email, you can have AI generated messages that are very similar to the tone perhaps of your manager. Could come across in the same way that he normally communicates. Same with IT. If it's kind of like looks like a standard sort of IT request, then that is something that could potentially be fallen for. More messages, as I mentioned, coming in on Teams and closed systems like Slack as well. So these can impersonate people that you know in management and again in IT. Generally, these are used for scams trying to attack internal systems. So if there's anything around giving over codes there in terms of multi-factor authentication or asking for passwords or anything like that, then definitely be very, very wary. So as I mentioned, your one-to-one conversations on WhatsApp and SMS are less secure. There's less potential there. So there's nothing corporate going on. So there's no filters. Pal mentioned that AI in a positive sense is used to detect email spam and also scam messages. So you're losing all of that protection there if you've moved to or you've been moved to WhatsApp and SMS. And also, it's a bit of social engineering one. People can get a bit chatty. You've got that one-to-one channel. They can sort of try and become effectively build that relationship and perhaps become your mate. And so watch out
Jonathan,
for that.
sorry,
Yes.
I have to burn into ask you this question.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
so we're talking about like these sorts of want to be your mate sort of thing.
Yeah.
How things have changed? Would you say it's now entirely possible that you could get a generated phone call, possibly even a generated video call of somebody pretending to be your mate, and you could be fooled? Do you think things have got to that level?
Yeah.
Would you say you've seen examples of that as well?
Yes, I would say so. I wouldn't say I'd say it's entirely possible for sure. So agree with you on that. But I'm personally aware of family members. So a classic is on sort of more personal side, perhaps than business, but there are family businesses, so this could definitely affect a business. So typically it's on the children front, and the classic one that some of you may be aware of is the child pretends that they're in trouble in some sort of shape or form. So
Yeah, yeah.
stranded or they've had an accident, and
I think we've all
then
had that. My father
yeah,
had his sister who rang from a jail in Canada,
a
asking for
jail,
money.
blimey,
A
right? Yeah,
jail in Canada. My father knew straight away. He's 91, but he knew straight away because his sister
good
died
on
20
him.
years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
So he was quite okay.
Yeah, yeah, good on him. But yes, absolutely. I think the impersonation is at that level. Also, LinkedIn's definitely on the rise, so be wary of that one because you're in a sort of professional business-like environment on LinkedIn, so you're a bit more susceptible there, perhaps thinking that everybody's going to be behaving in a business-like manner. Job offers is quite a common one, so the job offer might not be their aim at all, but often the scam around that is a bit like I was saying about building a relationship is to offer the job falls by the wayside, but by then they've established a bit of trust, and a week or a few days later they might come back with a targeted attack. So I mean, personally, I get messages on LinkedIn regularly, probably actually even more on LinkedIn than email, with bogus job offers, particularly relating to social media and digital work. So yeah, do be, that's my area, but they are personalized, so you could well get jobs that seem interesting or offers of freelance work that seem relevant to you, but they might not be. So be wary of that one. Voice cloning definitely on the rise because of the tech. So people sounding like people that you know. And help desk impersonation is another one. Mentioned the emails, password resets, MFA codes, and that kind of thing. So if credit card companies in particular regularly warn against not giving that kind of information around, but the same is true within an organization. Especially even if it's well, especially because probably more likely to come, the attempt will appear to come from the IT help desk to make it more convincing. So do be wary of those. So just verify that by speaking to your manager or using another channel to get in touch with the IT department and that kind of approach.
Jonathan, can I just ask quickly
Sure.
about the IT one? Because I know that it's a real tricky one. Because if somebody rings and says, "Oh, we found a problem on your system and we're your
It's
IT
believable, isn't it?
support," then you could easily give away all your passwords and everything, thinking this is a trusted party. So I guess if that ever happened, you would just say, I'll ring you. I'll actually ring you back, rather than just like you would with your bank." But with IT support, even more so, because you're literally you could expose your whole system, couldn't you?
Yeah, and not just your system, but you're giving them access to the
Could be your
entire
clients, your
organization system
suppliers,
potentially as well.
your whole
And
supply chain. Yeah,
that's how recent attacks on M&S, Jaguar, and the NHS have occurred by exactly what you're describing there. So I think it's often around the nature of the message is a good clue. So it is literally around clicking links, giving away passwords, giving away codes, downloading software, anything along those lines. Just be ultra careful. So in terms of how, I'm going to come on to some mitigation of AI because there's two sides to this, but in terms of how AI can help the attacker, some of these we've mentioned. So they can now create vast volumes of this. So before where they could just figure out a few emails and then send them out to a mailing list, then it's just possible now to not only create those quickly, but to create personalized emails and to send them out just in a matter of minutes. And what's worse is that they can be personalized because there's a lot of information out there about you and about me. So they can pick up certain bits of information that makes it sound more realistic. Creating of fake materials, documents, IDs is another one. We all know that image creation is really good on AI for creating things like infographics, but in the same way that you can create a quality infographic, you can create a fake invoice. Voice and video cloning, pretty much kind of covered that. And you can get, not only can your personal details be obtained, but your organization details as well from information that is available out there. But it's not all bad news because, as Pal referred to, there are some things that you can use AI for to fight back, if you like. So email and link filtering, AI is regularly used in software and systems that detects that kind of thing. Even sophisticated systems which weren't possible before AI to monitor changes in behavior or unusual activity. So in other words, if you've just got a regular kind of conversation thing going on with a colleague, and then out of the blue, they ask you to transfer £50,000 somewhere, then that could potentially be flagged up, particularly if they do it from if there's other clues there, like a different email account or a different location. AI works on algorithm and patterns, so anything that deviates from the normal, they can block that, and it enables an IT system to respond faster if there's a clue of a potential attack, or even once that attack is underway. So in summary, if you're using AI, you're following in defense, you're following strong processes, you've got good reporting behavior, and staff have got a certain amount of training and awareness, which I'm guessing is why you're here today, then that can all help you combat that menace. So in summary, then I think
Can I
sort of
just mention a
yep,
tip? Somebody
jump
just
in.
put in a tip
Sure,
there saying
sure.
they use a passphrase. So when they talk
Yes,
to clients and suppliers and
that's good.
support, yeah, they have a
Yep.
passphrase. So I suppose it sounds obvious, but yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah. No, I like that. Just, I mean, it's kind of just take a breath, take a pause, then check, have a double look at that message or that video, or listen again to that voice message. Verify, as Cassandra mentioned just a moment ago, you can phone back on a different number, or you can use Google to find a company's website just to check things out and communicate with them in a different way, perhaps from the link that you've been sent. And then if you're concerned or you think you've been attacked, then report it according to your processes. But anything around codes, do not share those. This is quite mention this one in particular because it's quite a common one that's doing the rounds. So even if it seems legitimate, like a typical one is where companies will say they want the code to make sure that it's you, that you are the actual customer. But that is very, very rare, if not like unheard of, that companies actually do that for real. So if you're asked to give any kind of like code across, be ultra like, well, almost certainly say no, because what they're trying to get there is a code to access your system or whatever you're trying to log on as. So any kind of like codes, be ultra wary of that. Follow process when it comes to payments. So don't just take the word of videos or voice notes, however convincing that is. And if I mean, you could even follow the rule that literally don't click any links in emails. But in practical terms, that might be a little bit extreme. But definitely, if you're even slightly suspicious of links in emails or pop-ups or any sort of like message, do not click those. So basic good practice, then stronger processes. So maybe time to review those processes and definitely follow those processes. Better access controls. We all know that resetting passwords and having multi-factor authentication is a good idea. On the IT side, make sure your systems are patched with the latest security patches and software updates, and have a decent no blame reporting culture, because you don't want a situation where somebody thinks they have been scammed, but then they're embarrassed or feel uncomfortable about actually reporting that. And not just me saying that, but it's literally in that alert. The NCSC are reiterating that kind of like was an optional thing, but that is now essential, is what they're saying. So just sort of drawing towards the end now, and got a fun quiz for you. So what I'd like you to do is just to jot down on a bit of paper or Word document or text document, whatever you like. Just got 6 questions here. And the answer to each question is either safe to act, pause and verify, or report immediately. So, for example, just taking question 1, supplier emails new bank details ahead of a scheduled payment. So what should be your decision or response to that? Is that something that's safe to act upon? Should you pause and verify, or should you report immediately? So I don't think it'll take too long for you to do that. And we do want to leave a bit of time for questions at the end, and we've got 10 minutes left. So I'll just give you maybe about 60 seconds to do that. But in the meantime, actually, if to fill that space, if Cassandra or Pal have got anything they want to add at this stage, we could do that while people are completing the quiz. Or you might want to take part yourself, guys.
I wonder if Paul might have had to go now, but he has
Yes,
typed
Pal's gone. Okay.
he has typed a couple of answers here, because we have had some questions.
Cool.
Emma asked, how is regulation enforced? So, how does the regulator know if someone is in violation, especially if the person is oblivious? Because if a small business doesn't know exactly what they're doing with AI, how do they get in trouble, and how easy it is for them to fall foul of the regulations. But I suppose if you're doing cyber essentials or something like that, that's going to give you some good protection, because it does teach you what you should and shouldn't do. But I'm guessing ignorance isn't really
Yep.
a defense anymore for these things, because it's not just happened yesterday. This has
Yep.
been going on.
Yep. Yeah, I'd agree with that, but that is kind of like Pal's area, so I'll sort of pass
Yeah,
on adding anything further on
yeah,
that. But I see there's another question there about WhatsApp. So yeah, just to reiterate, be very sort of careful of WhatsApp, because it is kind of like a standalone channel out there. So for those reasons, in terms of no protection, people can build that relationship with you. Just be a little bit wary on that channel switching, or if any company, particularly a new sort of company that you're dealing with or new contact is insisting you use WhatsApp. So I think there's enough time just to give you to do that. So these are the answers. The point one, a supplier emails new bank details ahead of a scheduled payment. So that could be legit. So it's a case of pausing and verifying that. People's bank details do change, but definitely a pause and verify, because rather than proceeding on that one, because it could be an attempt to divert money to the scammer's bank account. Director asks for an urgent payment via voice note. So, well, it could be a cloned voice. The urgency is a bit of a red flag. So this is one where you really do need to follow the process. So that would be a report immediately. Teams message asks you to enter a verification code. So that's the one that I mentioned to be particularly careful of with regard to codes. So that's another report immediately. Unexpected shared document link. So could be legitimate, but pause and verify on that. The clue here is unexpected. If they haven't said to you that they're going to send you a link. Definitely suspicious in terms of asking for codes again, even if it is from IT. Could be somebody pretending to be IT, so report immediately. And customer requests personal data to be sent to a new email address. People, just like they change their bank details, people do change their email addresses, so could be legitimate, but just pause and verify that. So all of these have got kind of like a potential to be suspicious. There are lots and lots of others, of course, but hopefully that just gives you a bit of a steer as to some of the possibilities there. So just going to wrap up before we get to questions. But in terms of what we covered today, AI has made scams and fraudulent attempts more convincing. Good grammar and spelling doesn't automatically mean it's safe. You've got to be even more vigilant now. Voice and video aren't proof of identity. Urgency is definitely a warning sign. Always verify through a separate trusted route. So find out that business's phone number, for example, or website, and go via that route rather than the link or the provided phone number. And reporting quickly, yeah, no shame, no embarrassment about that. That is for the benefit of you and the organization. So if you're remotely suspicious or you think you've fallen for a scam, then do report that. In terms of where you can get help, so the NCSC that I've referred to a bit, not only did they issue that alert, but there's tons of good stuff on their website, which is ncsc.gov.uk. Obviously, contact your MSP or IT support if you've got any further questions on today's material. And finally, report any suspicious messages that you're coming in, and be particularly aware that it's not just email. Two particular things to focus on. So do look at that 4-step pause. So I'll just go back to that just for refresh your memories. So stop, check, or pause if you like. Stop, check, verify, and then report if there is an issue, or you think that there is an issue. And the other one is do read, that it's really, really good, comprehensive. It's written in natural language. So have a read of that NCS NCSC alert that came out on Monday. So yeah, nice little quote here. So safest staff member is not the person who never gets caught out, it's the person who pauses, checks, and reports quickly. So that's it in terms of the content. Slide disappeared there. But the final slide was just really to invite you to ask any questions. So I'll just go over to Sandra and see if we've had any additional questions in at all.
Yeah, literally, just right now, Kerry's asked a great question. She said, I've got a question, how we as an organization help to make people that we work with comfortable that we're legitimate too. So from the other side of things, how can we make our clients and prospects trust us? I mean, I'm thinking Cyber Essentials straight away here and certifications to show that you have a minimum standard of security, but would you add anything, Jonathan?
Yeah, no, 100% on that. And I think it's the same with any business relationship. It's about building that relationship. So anything that they can do in terms of verification, business legitimacy, even sort of like how long they've been in business, that kind of thing. And as a reassurance to sort of like say to the staff, pass on some of the points from today, that like make sure that they have got a direct phone number or a direct messaging channel that they can use. That if there is any doubt at all, that's the appropriate channel to get in touch with, and probably even better, a named person on the other end of that phone or email as well.
Oh, here's one more question.
Sure.
Would you envisage AI getting to a point where it's more detrimental than beneficial, having to worry about every call, every message being fake? I mean, it is quite exhausting already, isn't it? Just zero trust. You just don't trust anybody or anything.
Yeah, I think that's a huge question, but
Yeah.
a really important one. And I think, yeah, I think it's moving so fast that I wouldn't say perhaps it's going to be, as an avid fan and proponent and trainer of AI, I would like to think that it's never going to be that way, that it's going to be, more detrimental than beneficial. But I would agree that in terms of the technology, it's kind of like getting to the stage where we automatically kind of have to distrust more than we trust, which is a horrible position, I think, as humans to be in. If 2 years ago people were running a live Teams call that was completely fake, then that's quite a worry. Because that was 2 years ago, and it was live. So I think we've really got to have that questioning sort of like sense around us. And as an additional point, I'd sort of like say that I think society is a bit sort of perhaps behind the curve as well, because there's still people falling for fake videos all over social media every day. So I think there's quite a lot of education on the public with regard to that. If that wasn't happening, then people wouldn't be producing these. It's clearly working. The Martin Lewis example is one where people made a lot of money and probably are going to continuing even right now. They could be, if those videos, which they are still circulating. I wouldn't be surprised if people literally today are sadly clicking those links and transferring money from their bank. So we are in a pretty worrying situation. And so I would say sort of wider context of society, like even news reporting, pretty much video. I know reputable news organizations have their own systems for fact checking and so on, but I think it could actually change the nature of journalism. So I'm kind of like thinking that as well as a video, particularly something that's happening in real time or near real time, I think the importance of having a journalist there to sort of like verify that is going to be increasingly important. So I think we might see news reporting changed. And another one that I don't think has been given much thought of is court evidence, because right now videos are admissible in court, and there's been a number of cases in the UK and abroad where people have been convicted on deepfake video evidence. So you have to like ask the question, why are we still using video evidence in court? But of course, if that was automatically banned from tomorrow, that would have massive implications in terms of societal implications on the justice system. So yeah, just chucking in a few of my thoughts there as we
Use
rapidly
safely
approach
is a
1
big
p.m.
benefit. Yeah, it's a big benefit to business, I think. And I think we shouldn't
Exactly.
look at all the scary stuff. That if you've got a good IT support company and you've got good, you've got good protection, you've got your Cyber Essentials certification, which also trains your staff, I think you can really enjoy the benefits and not worry
Exactly.
too much about the tipping point of when it outweighs the benefit.
Yeah,
That's a good
totally agree
question.
with that. Yeah.
That's my questions that I've got here. So
Excellent.
more.
So I
Yeah.
think you probably wrap up the session, Cassandra.
Yeah. So thank you so much to Pal. Sorry we've had to leave him early. And obviously Jonathan, who's doing our whole series of 6 training sessions. So please do join us next month. We'll invite you again and look out for your invitation. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
All
Cassandra.
right, take care. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone.